Alright folks, this is Ash and I am going to demonstrate how we can run Freenas Corral as a virtual machine on a ESXi but still give it direct access to the hard drives. Now, as you all may know, that Freenas uses ZFS RAID, software RAID, which requires direct access to your hard drive. Running Freenas as a virtual machine is not recommended just for this reason, because it does not get direct access to hard drives. But using ESXi, you can do a PCI pass-through if your hard drives are connected to a PCI, HBA card or RAID card. Make sure the hardware RAID feature is disabled and the card has been set to IT mode, which basically gives you direct access to the hard drive. All right, so I've created a virtual machine for Freenas. Before we proceed anywhere else, we need to go into configuration of the ESXi, click on advanced settings, edit, and do a pass-through for the card, PCI HBA card. In my case, I'm using a LSI card. So once you do a pass-through, you have to restart your ESXi host. Once you do a restart of ESXi host, create a virtual machine for Freenas. Add everything you need in there, including the ISO, the disk where the Freenas will be installed. 16 gig is the maximum recommended. I've added a 10 gig SSD and a 20 gig SSD, which will run as my log and a cache storage respectively. Memory 8 gigs, CPU 2 cores, 1 socket, and that should do it. Alright, next thing you want to add is make sure in options VMware tools synchronize guest time is enabled, and lastly the PCI pass-through. Select PCI device, next LSI, that's the only one I'm passing through right now. Select it, next, finish. Done. You are done. Alright, now let's power the sucker on. Perfect. Freenas installer. Alright, so we'll go through the installation process. It should be fairly fast. Okay, looks good. Install. Select the disk where you want to install it. Next. Yes. Specify root user password. Make sure you remember this password because you will have to use this to log into Freenas first time. Okay. So the installation process has started. It'll take like a few minutes depending on various factors. I'm going to pause the video here and come back to it once done. Alright folks, we are back and the installation has finished. We will go ahead and reboot. And reboot itself shouldn't take too long. After the reboot is done, we should be able to log into Freenas and get direct access to the hard drives. You can already tell that it already sees. You can tell by the text. It can already see the hard drives. That's good. I love, like I mentioned before, I love playing with the ESXi VMware. I'd never got a chance to got any experience with Citrix or any other virtualization environment. Freenas itself also uses a Linux-based virtualization environment and also Docker. I need to play with those and see how they are. But VMware is the most virtualization experience I have. Um, it's also the most popular one out there. Citrix is also very popular, but VMware is the other one. And Docker is open freeware virtualization sort of platform that is also gaining ground in the market. Linux has come out with those. So there are several Linux-based virtualization platforms that are coming out as well, which are also very powerful, but you need a lot of tech knowledge to get into them. A very hardcore Linux tech background to get into them. All right, so FreeNAS should be booting anytime. We'll see the CLI as well as the interface IP address show up. So once we have an IP address, we will proceed and log into it. Okay. All right. So we have an IP address. I'll log in with the root user and the password you created during the installation process. All right. So you see the interface, FreeNAS local, blah blah blah. Click on storage. There you have access to all the storage. Now it says exported. The reason for that is that these were previously part of the previous FreeNAS test build I was doing, and they were already added to that. So here's another interesting feature. I can actually import this as it is. See, this is the power of FreeNAS. You can, if you do an OS reinstallation, all you have to do is import the previous volume, and it'll import seamlessly without any issues. Shows up without any issues, any problems at all, and just works. All right, let's do a quick share. Well, before we do a share setup, let's look at the network. That's fine. Okay, this is 10 gig network. I'm gonna GBE. Let's give it an IP address 168.9. That's the IP address too. I'm gonna give it. I'm manually assigning it an IP. Done. Okay, perfect. Change the MTU to 9000 jumbo frame. Okay, the reason I did that was so I can do a high-speed data transfer to the share I'm going to create. SMB for Windows. Backup. Enable SMB service. Guest allowed. Permissions. Change that to nobody because I don't want it to prompt anyone for password for the share. Perfect. There you go. And that'll create it. I'm going to use my SFP 10 gig data transfer to transfer data to it. Okay. Make sure I okay. I'm just configuring my SFP plus network. Shall be ready momentarily. I have to give it a manual static IP address 9.3 255 blah blah blah, jumbo frame set to 9000. Alright, it will work now. Well, in theory anyway. Maybe it won't. Oh god. And it's officially not working. Alright, never mind. So this should be enough for now. We'll do a network setup demonstration a bit later after I figure out what the issue is. Most likely I need to set appropriate network settings in the ESXI because that is going through ESXI. Alright, thank you for joining me. This is Ash. Have a good day.